Yesterday, we had a data-driven meta overview of the most popular decks played in Pokemon Pocket tournaments this weekend, highlighting the most successful among them. If you missed that, check it in the video description down below. Today, we're going to be digging through for some hidden gems, looking for the deck list that only had a handful of people playing them, but posted incredible 70+% win rates inside of those tournaments. Deck lists that could be the next breakout thing in Pokemon Pocket's metagame could be found in this video here today. Let's go ahead and jump into it, shall we? We kick things off today with a Bastiodon Skarmory deck that had an incredible performance in the Hogalandia Spraggles tournament this weekend. 4 players played this archetype, and 3 of them made the top 64 cut out of our over 1,000 competitors. This deck list has incredibly aggressive starts, with Skarmory along with a Pokemon tool letting you start crack for 50 damage on the first turn of the game, and then Bastiodon builds up into a card that can survive an incredible amount of damage with a few coin flips breaking your way, while also dishing out a consistent 80 points of damage every single turn. One of the big upsides of this deck past its aggressive starts is the fact that it is all single knockout point Pokemon, and you are hyper consistent, always getting to open on Skarmory, since your second Pokemon line is a fossil that can't be guaranteed in your opening hand. If you're looking for a deck list to put Darkrai in its place, this Lucario Aerodactyl EX variation could be just that. A player had a 9-2 record in the Hogalandia Spraggles tournament with it, and they beat Darkrai variations 6 out of the 8 matches that they played into it. Lucario lets you hit some incredible breakpoints with your fighting Pokemon, allowing Aerodactyl EX to do 100 points of damage, clearing things like Druddigon in one go. And if you assemble 2 Lucarios, the type advantage Aerodactyl EX has into something like Magnezone lets you clear it in a single go. Marshadow is especially deadly with these extra bits of damage, with double Lucario letting you clear out a Darkrai and just a single Lucario clearing out Magnezone due to that type advantage yet again. Next up, we have a Giratina Infernape deck list that posted a 5-2 finish in one of our tournaments this weekend. Giratina kind of serves double duty in this deck. It's a high HP single knockout point Pokemon that you can lead on that allows you to buy time to assemble your stage 2 finisher. And once your Infernape comes together, the Levitate Pokemon ability lets us put a single energy on it to retreat it out, which we can then combo with the incredibly powerful supporter Dawn to push that energy back up to Infernape later, allowing it to attack for 140 2 turns in a row. The third Pokemon line in this deck is Heatmor, which is a very reasonable, aggressive starting attacker that can put up a little bit of damage to start before you pivot into your Infernape to clean your opponent out. Up next, we have a Fighting Fossils variation featuring both Aerodactyl EX and Rampardos. If you're looking for another potential Darkrai counter, this player beat it 3 times on their 7-2 tournament run. Personally, I've been really impressed with Rampardos in the games that I've played with it on stream, cracking for 130 points of damage for not only a single energy, but also on a Pokemon that only gives up a single knockout point when your opponent clears it back. Feels incredibly powerful. The dynamic of this deck, playing only 2 regular basic Pokemon, 1 Farfetch'd and 1 Hitmonlee, with a Pokeball to guaranteed find whichever one you're missing, is a really interesting dynamic as well, as someone who's enjoyed a lot of fighting box variation decks in the past. Pokemon communication really ties the whole room together here, making it so these fossils can more consistently find their stage 1 and potentially stage 2 in Rampardos' case to put pressure on your opponent consistently every single game. Speaking of fighting variations, we have Magnezone making an appearance in another deck that doesn't play lightning energy in its zone as the top end for the Farfetch'd Hitmonlee Marshadow package. I really like the concept of this deck list a lot. The fighting decks often struggled with having a card that could do big bursts of damage to let you clear through things like Executor EX that tend to be a little bit more durable, and Magnezone not only provides this big burst of damage, but it does so in a card that's also a single knockout point, allowing it to synergize cleanly with the Marshadow aspect of this deck as well. I also like that Hitmonlee supports Magnezone in a clean way, allowing you to soften up things that have higher HP pools, so that way the 110 Blast is more likely to clear anything your opponent can throw at you in a single hit. This deck list had an 8-2 finish overall and went 2-1 against the Darkrai Magnezone variations that are likely going to be increasing in popularity. Next up, we have an 18 trainer Pachirisu variation that posted an 8-2 as well as 7-3 finish in the hands of 2 players in tournaments this weekend. To set a low bar, I would wager this archetype is markedly better than the Articuno and Zapdos 18 trainer variations we saw in previous seasons. The addition of Poketools lets you keep your lone attacker alive a little bit longer. You're hitting for more damage earlier, and you have better utility cards like Cyrus and Blue, meaning you don't have to play terrible things like Pokedex and Red Card any longer. For the sake of transparency, I think this is probably the deck list I'm most skeptical on having staying power out of all the things I'm covering today, but it was novel and new, so I felt it was worth a shout out for people that wanted to play with their favorite blue squirrel. Up next, we have another Infernape variation that posted a 5-2 finish in one of our tournaments, this time featuring seldom played card Dodrio. Dodrio, a pretty efficient attacker, especially when you're going first, letting you deal 40 for 1 energy when you hit that evolution, and it notably has a free retreat cost, so you can bob it in back and forth cleanly with Infernape in the late game or when it's finally ready to attack, so that way you can constantly keep the pressure on. One noteworthy inclusion or lack thereof in this build is only a singular copy of Dawn. I think I'd be inclined to try and get another copy in here, maybe over the second Giovanni, so that way you can push that energy from Dodrio up onto the Infernape to allow you to keep blasting 2 turns in a row a little bit more consistently. Up next, we have a Luxray Zapdos EX variation that had a 7-3 record in the tournament, which it was played in. Looking at the matchups that this deck ran through, it actually didn't encounter the Darkrai Magnezone deck at all during its run, but I would wager that matchup's probably pretty reasonable. While Luxray's 120-point attack doesn't clear 140 in one go, leaving a Darkrai or a Magnezone at just 20 means a single peck from a Zapdos or a trigger from a Rocky Helmet can go ahead and finish off their most powerful attackers that tend to be a little bit durable. Being able to attack past the active also means that Druddigon's chip shot damage isn't going to be a factor for you, meaning the 130 HP the attackers in this deck have are rarely going to be one-shot by the Darkrai amalgamations. Up next, we have another player exploring Magnezone in a different shell, this time alongside Starmie and Articuno EX. Again, you're playing just water energy in this deck because Magnezone is a Pokemon that powers itself with lightning thanks to the Magneton Stage 1, generating at least 2 on your way up to your Stage 2. This deck list went 5-2 in the tournament in which it was played, and as someone who's played a lot of Starmie EX, I have to say I'm really going to need to see or feel this one in action to think about what it has going on. It's just such an interesting combination of cards. I wanted to highlight it here. If you get a chance to play with it, I would love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments down below, because I'm struggling at a glance to think about how Magnezone is improving the matchups that a Starmie deck would typically struggle in. Next up, we have a Gallade Lucario variation that made a top 64 finish in the Hogalandia Spraggles Pokemon Pocket Open this past weekend. 2 Pokemon communication being the most noteworthy inclusion here, which adds consistency to not only your Stage 2 that you're building up for as a powerful finisher, but can also notably help you assemble Lucario more consistently, making your Hitmonchan leads that much more deadly. Gallade is a card that I'd personally been kind of low on. I actually haven't played any games with yet, so it's exciting to see this card post an early result here in one of our tournaments. I'm definitely going to be digging into it at some point this week on stream. Up next, we have another Infernape variation being played alongside Moltres EX that had a top 64 finish in the Hogalandia Spraggles Open this weekend. While Moltres notably doesn't want to power up Infernape past just 2 energy, a synergy that is worth noting is that Dawn can both help our Moltres attack early, cracking in for 70 points of damage when that is ideal, while also being able to fuel our Infernape in the late game, allowing us to clear for 140 points of damage 2 turns in a row. This deck list is notably fashioning 2 giant capes as well to make our biggest attackers a little bit more durable and harder to take down. Our last deck list here today features only 1 basic Pokemon in Chatot, while also playing the full evolution lines for Kabutops and Rampardos. It had a 5-2 finish overall, and we got to watch this deck list on stream go toe-to-toe against Charizard and emerge victorious. Notably, the 130 damage that Rampardos does in tandem with 50 damage from Kabutops lines up really cleanly into the 180 HP breakpoint that a lot of powerful stage 2 Pokemon in Pocket have right now. Chatot in particular looked really impressive in this deck in the games that we watched, often drawing close to double digits worth of cards and allowing the player playing it to assemble their multiple stage 2 Pokemon hyper consistently, especially alongside Pokemon communication. The weekend after a new set releases, digging through tournament data is one of my absolutely favorite times to be playing any card game. While there's some clear standout winners in this developing metagame, it feels like there are a ton of and underexplored tools to be attacking this format with. The 3 Infernape decks in today's highlight video really come to mind as a potentially great way to be attacking this format, where 140 HP Pokemon are coming to the forefront with Darkrai and Magnezone. If you want to see another Infernape variation, my highlight later today will be a build featuring it alongside Rapidash on the channel as well. If you enjoyed my musings, be sure to smash that like button. If you have to be new here, consider subscribing to the channel. I post data, results-driven breakdowns like this following Pokemon Pocket's biggest tournaments a couple of times per week here, and you always find me brewing lots of other things, trying to attack the metagame in my own way and playing in tournaments myself on all the days in between. I appreciate you watching all the way through to the end, and may your next pack be an excellent one.